Standing, hello.
Are we here for a meeting?
We're here for a meeting. It's 6:02 and we're ready to get going. What's that? You good? All right. Hopefully, can you just check and see if Sam can hear us okay? Sam, if you're on, just.
Here he is up top.
All right,
Can you speak, please?
Yeah,
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
An agenda?
There's an agenda on the table. There were. I'm sorry. There's water there and some candy. That's it. I haven't left the building.
With phone service tonight.
Yeah, hey.
Anyone else need anything while I'm up? I'm not gonna start with, I didn't even buy any home.
All right.
All right.
So I'll call the meeting together at 6:03, and Craig, you gonna call the roll?
Yep, definitely.
Please.
Luke Murray,
Here.
Alita Hall, Amy Anzalone, Dr. Dixon,
Here.
Dave D'Agostino's here. Christine Kennedy.
Here.
Kimberly Shockley.
Sure.
John Cowart's not here. I'm here. Mr. Lucian.
Here.
Harold Sands is not here. Jason's not here. Miss Patno.
Here.
John Price. Here. And Mr. Resto.
Oh, the way you talk to me, Lee.
I don't have minutes to pass out tonight.
Yeah,
I'll have
that's okay.
next
So
time.
we don't have any minutes to approve, so we'll just move on. Appreciate everybody making time out of the schedule tonight. I know we kind of called this a little later than I would have liked. So I'll start off with the chairman's report. So just to let you know what's been going on since our last meeting, that the discussions back and forth with the town. Amy's here.
Okay.
In my office,
Yeah,
sorry.
So we had a meeting, we being myself, Craig, Harold Sands, who else did we have? Jen Ludwig was in on the meeting, Ben Marchant, the town manager, and Lisa, the town finance director. I believe that was it. Last week to discuss some high-level information regarding the finances. Before that meeting, you probably saw, I believe I copied the committee on my response to the presentation. To say that we found it disappointing is, I think, an understatement from my standpoint. I tried to be as specific as I could in comments to respond to some of the financials. I thought I was specific in that. I think the meeting probably didn't go as well as I hoped. There was some agreement as far as, okay, if we're talking about dollars and cents on the savings, maybe that's not the discussion we should be having. Maybe it needs to be broader. But when we kind of questioned the numbers, it got confusing quick, as it has in the past. I think it got a little, let me just put it frank, we don't, Mr. Sands and I do not agree with the numbers that are coming from the town. I'm not going to miss them. I think some of the assumptions are wrong. I pointed that out in my comments, and I think you saw that. And I haven't gotten satisfactory answers to date on why our proposal, which the building committee kind of put forth at the 1.99%, applying the past on debt, proposing a reserve fund, why that wouldn't work. So I've never received a bounce back and saying, here's why your proposal wouldn't work. I haven't received a proposal on how we could make this work. Essentially, my general feeling is that this has been laid at our feet for us to work out in all aspects as a project, including seeing if it will work for the town. And I don't know if we can do all of that because, quite frankly, I'm not privy to every piece of financial information the town has. I did make an attempt to get the spreadsheet. That was unsuccessful in that request. I've asked Mr. D'Agostino is trying to also weighing on that to see if there's something that we could get, because I think it's very important. One of the things that Mr. Sands has iterated is that we really need to see the assumptions behind the numbers that are being presented to council, so we can better understand how they're coming to calculations that we don't think are correct. And if they are correct, then maybe they're just doing things a little differently than we are. And so maybe we can better explain how we're coming at it. So the point is, I'm not really sure where we go from here. We'll be discussing in a few moments where we may go, or I'm going to make some proposals on how we address this, because I think we're at a bit of an impasse right now. I don't know if any further meetings are going to be helpful, because we've asked the questions and I've put things down on paper, and I can't seem to get the responses, the direct responses that I'm looking for. And again, we can have a discussion on that. So it's disappointing at this point that we're not getting to some middle ground with the town on figuring out, okay, how do we present this, either in a favorable light or at least an honest light from all sides of the equation. Whether it's good, bad, or different. My goal was to have a joint presentation on the 22nd. We did bump it because, quite frankly, I couldn't make it on the 8th, but we also were deficient on information. I wanted to have a meeting with the town to see if we could come with some middle ground. That meeting kind of devolved and didn't come out with any sort of resolution on anything. So here we are. Does anybody have any questions on that specifically?
So just because financing is part of the question you're asking, Dave, did you ever discover if we looked in the enacting legislation, put forth the levy when we put forth the bond?
Yes.
Have it be separate from this.
So I did give Luke an answer to that, and unfortunately the answer is no, because the reason behind it is, yes, you can have language, rather flexible language put in the enabling legislation. But if you think about, if you bake a levy into the vote on the bond, and then you have a financial town meeting, what if the budget that has to include that first vote, what if the budget fails? Now you have basically fiscal chaos, where you have potentially an approved project that the voters in the town overall reject, and it's not gonna work. You can't approve a levy in March and then have another levy in June at the FTM, unless they coordinate. And putting that into enabling legislation isn't gonna help.
Okay.
Because
I thought
there's
you
no way
said
to
over
smooth
the
those
4%,
out.
and we don't even know that we would. If it's legislative.
So the issue with the 4%, there are reasons, in the statute, there are ways to exceed the 4%. And I think that there might be a way to exceed the 4%, because the town may qualify on one of the exemptions.
But just
Don't
to
we
be clear,
end up
just to
with
be
the-
clear,
Sorry.
we're not exceeding 4%. So I think I wanted to talk to you about all this offline, because I think I haven't had time to, but I think it is some false assumptions that you're making, and no offense to you, but I think first assumption is we're definitely not going over 4% combined. The second is that we were proposing just to split a levy, so one levy was specific to the bond, and we could draft the enabling legislation so that way, if you vote for the bond, but you don't pass the levy, then effectively you can't go forward with the bond. You can have an approval, but unless you have the money to go with it, that doesn't move forward. So that was really
Kind of going off what you said, Andy, you said, like, if we pass the bond and then we don't approve the budget, that's a problem no matter what. So.
Right. No, yes,
If the bond
right.
is new spending, without a
Sure,
doubt.
sure.
So if we pass the bond and we're able to do the levy at the same time, it's either better.
But then basically what I'm saying is, what do you do in June when you have a budget that is up for a vote?
Vote on it.
you would still hold a financial town meeting.
Right.
So my understanding, this was posed to so I've gotten two answers. Lisa said that she felt municipal finance that we couldn't do it. You indicated that you said that we could do it.
I thought that's what she said.
So I haven't gotten,
She was supposed to call municipal financing, I believe, last Friday to ask the question. And the question was, can you, say for the tax levy of 1.99 and the referendum to approve the and that money could go into like a reserve fund so that it could be set aside for paying for the bond. But that would also be part of the 4%. So the most you could ask for in the vote for the budget would be 2.01.
Correct. And that's really what we're looking is it would max at the 4 between the two. We really just want to have one separate vote for the levy. And this is really strategic that by associating with the bond, people kind of understand that. I'm approving a project. I know that, I'm gonna have to pay for this project, I accept that. The operating budget is a little different scenario where, that's the baby, we say, I think.
That's an annual issue, it's the operating budget. But if we were able to put forth the bond and guarantee we're paying for the bond, and then the June budget is the same, or May budget is the same issue we have every. Do we want to pay more tax?
And if we feel it would be helpful, Tom Ray has offered to sponsor this, so he may be able to get us in touch with counsel from the State House as far as drafting the enabling legislation.
Well, that's why I sent those various other
Yeah,
legislation samples to you. And I hate to go on hearsay or double or triple hearsay, but if what Lisa is saying that municipal finance said that it's possible to do that, then I would always defer to municipal finance because they're the ones that have to, your budget and everything has to be certified by them before it's even presented to the voters. So if they say that there's a way to do it.
I would want to see that in writing.
I would
I'm at
too.
the point where I'm just tired of listening to, she said, and not knowing for sure what is the answer. I'm not sure if I'm listening to fake news or not. I would like to see a letter from municipal finance saying exactly what may be done.
I feel that way on a lot of levels when it comes to this.
I-
Because they go back and forth, and, we talked about, like, getting a, third-party audit for our own town. Like, I feel like that's where I'm at with this process. Like, somebody's saying we can't afford it. We all put together this whole finance committee. We deep dived into this, and we have a path forward on how we can do it. So we're that third party that's going to come in and look at it and say, this person's wrong, you can afford it in this.
I think part of the, I mean to jump in, but I think part of the process, and I said, and I'll share my opinion later on, is that I think that we've put a lot of stock in and I'll give credit to Luke and the smaller groups that have been meeting. But I think I shared this with Ms. Cotton, probably with Mr. Murray, that I felt like there's a point where they're not working. And I feel like this group is the group that we need to use moving forward because you're a force. I mean, this is just not a token political appointees, and we have experts at the table. We have people that are vested, and I feel that's where it needs to go and moving forward because Mr. Murray's done an incredible job trying to request, like you said, what's behind this, who's right, who's wrong, and I feel that again, I feel a lot of times I get people feel like I'm aggressive or I'm going at people, but it's like, like we've spent 2.5 years in this process, right? People have invested a lot of time, given up a lot of time. And I think we do, there's respect that should be at least given to what's been put into this process. And, so I know, I'm not political. I just want to do the right thing for this community. I don't even live here. I don't have kids here, but this is what we've invested all our time in. And, I feel that, at some point we've got to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what we, and I agree with you. We've got to find this information that's being thrown out there. Like, we're trying to get the data behind how they come up with numbers, right? So you got, so I don't know, but I'm just extremely frustrated, and I feel like,
I find that I get really frustrated from the town finance side because I feel like their message is always just on a hard line, we can't afford it. And I've never felt that they've been like, okay, I understand the need for this. I can see why we need this job. Like, let me see, let's really work together to find out what we can do. Like, I feel like there's just been a hard wall of like, we can't afford this.
Well, in fairness, they haven't.
I agree with you 100%.
In fairness,
I'm going to say.
I don't
100%.
I do agree with you on probably 85%, but I thought that was pretty open.
I think listen, here's my perception. And the town manager essentially said, it's not his job to weigh in. I would disagree. I think that at some point, the administration has to let us know where they stand so we can figure out if there's a path forward.
But they have. They said from the get-go, Miss Mills said before I even met her that
Well,
she
they
didn't feel that this was affordable.
In public, the
So-
conversation has been, here's the information, right? Determine what you want. And it's been very kind of, here's what we perceive the information to be, you read into it what you want. Come to your own determination. That's not helpful from this side where we're trying to work out. Because I just can't, if the town comes to us, had come to us months ago and said, listen, we just financially can't afford this and this is why, is there something that works? I think that's a discussion we at least could have had in an honest form. But right now, we're kind of at the end stage saying, how do we make this?
So in fairness, it's been at the end stage since we got a new town manager.
Yeah.
Like, this project had already gotten to a place where we're like, this is the project, this is what we want to move forward with.
Mhm.
And he came into town with the guidance of, yeah, we need to try to pass the annual budget.
Sure.
And now we get it, like, as soon as he was told we have to try to pass the budget, because, you know, residents of this town don't want to. And we'd like to also add an $89 million bond to that. That's a project that you have had no part in development. So I can't see how it'd be hard to jump onto that. It's like kind of starting parenting with a 13-year-old. You know, it's like, oh, damn, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Diaper expenses, not putting away for a car. Really taking this analogy too far. But, you know, I think the fact of the matter is, timing's been hard. I agree. You know, they're very straight people. Like, they're not creative thinkers. They're not outside the box, especially when, you know, when you're not heart and soul in a project, going way outside the box for that project is probably a bit more difficult. So, you know, the meeting tonight could be, we don't enjoy, we are, right? This group is outside the box thinkers, and so we've all put that work in. I think that's, you know, where Craig and I are coming from on this too. Like, this group is, we've gone through that, we've done it all, and we put it on paper and said, here's how to do it. The project. We're still not in agreement of how we do paper.
Yeah, I'd like to just talk
So-
about affordability, because I heard the word a lot, and this is my take on what that means. What it means is if we take on debt, if the town takes on debt, that's all of us, if we take on debt, will the voters give us tax increases every year for the next 25 years so that we can pay off this debt? And if they won't give us what we need to just run the operations of the town and the school, then we're going to have to make hard decisions on both the town and the school side as to what has to go. Where can we get some efficiencies? Maybe we can become more efficient in our services. Maybe we don't have bulk pickup anymore at the transfer station, et cetera. There are going to be some things that have to go. Things have to change. And if people are going to be willing to accept those changes. That's number one. And number two, based on bond indebtedness, based on the calculation, if we take on this debt, we may only have about a wiggle room of about $10 million in available debt that we could still take on. And so I think people are concerned about what happens if you need to improve roads, or you need to put in sewers, you need this or you need that, or you need to do something with Johnson's Fund. There's a whole list of critical issues. And will we have the ability to take on some of these other issues and work on resolutions of these issues? So when I think about affordability, it's not so much the affordability of the bond itself, but the affordability to carry on operations of the town and school as people are used to having them. And how much are people willing to take a risk, and how much are they willing to sacrifice if the voters do not continually give us a tax increase every year? That's my take on affordability.
Okay, I'm gonna hold, can I hold, like, because we're getting on, like, this is the chairman's report, and I just want to say, so the next topic is about this as well, so we can continue the conversation. I'll put you first, Jim, but I just wanted to, you know, because I got to kind of stay on agenda. That was more of a put out and then started this whole talk. So I'll just move to B really quickly. There's been ongoing talk to Studio Jig and Peregrine. They're going to be both presenting a little bit tonight. Bill on the next topic, and then, unfortunately, Sam has to be at home. He's on quarantine. He's got put in the box. So he's with us tonight via Zoom. But he has some things to present regarding architectural RFP as well. I won't spoil his surprise. All right. So let me move on to the next topic, because I think it's a good segue from what Ian had said. So one of the things I think that's being missed is, one of the things that I think you just said, Ian, is, are the people willing to get tax bills in 25 years? And I just want to make sure everyone understands that what we said is, it is a one-time increase that builds the money into the budget. So they're not taxed every year. They're taxed just like every other thing. If the operation goes up 2% and $1 million gets built in, positions get formulated or whatever, those positions are funded moving forward. People vote one time to accept that increase and move on. That's been something I think a bit lost, and even in our meeting last week, that was something that the finance director said, and I said, no, that's not the case. So I think what's getting lost is stripping the bond out from the operation. There is, I agree, a case to be made that leaving $10 million in available debt in a snapshot of this year may be undesirable by the council or the community. I can't answer that question. We can't answer that question. That is what it is. I disagree that that is a snapshot in time, because the debt cliffs fall off, and I marked this up in the presentation to look at it. It's by 2038, they're resolving another $3.5 million worth of debt. So again, creative thinking would have kind of said to the council, this is how this works. Yes, this year it looks like this picture, but the financial picture gets better over time. All that to lead to this conversation, which Ann and I spoke after the meeting. I didn't think it went well.
Not our meeting.
The meeting with the town manager.
It didn't go well. It didn't go well. It didn't go well. I mean, I just have a hard time with this. Like, I got to be honest. Like, it didn't go well, and that's all I'll say.
Yeah, not much was resolved, and it kind of left more questions. So Ann and I spoke the day after, 2 days later, and we got to just talking. And so I said that I would bring forth an alternate option, and I'll put it out there. I'm begrudgingly putting it out there, but I do understand the realities of government and how everything works. And I have to put myself in a situation, me personally, not the committee. This is why I'm putting it out. Is that I always try to look at things as myself. I'm a municipal administrator. If I was sitting on the other side of town, what would that be concerned? The valid concerns I've heard today is debt, the amount of debt availability, the political issue this may create for the operating budget, which we can't see, that's just it. It's this town, it's the reality we live in. And the fact that the town, per pretty much the town manager's comment, has no real solid CIP. We're not in the best situation. It is what it is, and I say that structure. I say that in the fact that, like, we don't have systems in place that I see in other cities and towns that's more stable. Put it that way. So we got to talking, and the discussions, like, of course, what can we do for less? And I don't want to go for less. I am invested in this project. However, being the pragmatist, we had this discussion. And what I threw out and said, what I would bring to the committee, this is a committee discussion, is what would be a reduced project? The initial discussion Ann had, and Ann, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was, well, what if we just do all the other schools except for the middle school and like the $9 and maybe we put some money in for the middle schools.
Start low in the negotiation.
Right. So so I want to convey the information so you know where we started, and do a little work in the middle schools to resolve the mold issue, which, to be quite frank, I don't think that's a small issue.
It's not the reason why we put it on the table.
No, that's true.
Right.
The middle school, and I feel that that's been stated out there, and it is. There's no real rebuttal. I mean, I think there's a huge rebuttal.
So along those lines, I said that's a non-starter. That's not something I can even take to the committee. What I will take to the committee is that's a logical approach. And I look at it from a municipal perspective. If I'm sitting in the town manager's seat and I need more time to take up my capital improvement, look at outlays on the town side. Start getting a sense of the stability factor of the town. What would be reasonable without putting full brakes on a project? Because it reminds you that right now the council's decision is $89 million or nothing. That is the dialogue. Now we might talk about $89 million or $40 to $45 million, half a project. That would potentially include, and actually, you know what? I'll get to you in a second, Phil. You can outlay what that would include. But I would say that in broad prospect, that would get us some substantial improvements at the middle school, essentially not being able to construct it. But being very clear that we intend at the next debt cliff to come back for the rest of the project. So phase 2 would be at the next debt cliff, about 10 years. That's not what anyone wants to hear. But the committee can disagree with that. They can modify that. They can say no. The real question that's going to be before you after Phil presents the chat is I'm going to ask for, I don't even know if we have enough people here for check the form. But I want some clear direction from the committee on what we're going to present on the 27th. If it's the full project, I'm on board. If it's plan A, plan B, I'm on board with that. We'll run the numbers. So this isn't to shove this down anyone's throat. I want to be clear on that. I'm one member of the larger committee, and I respect it. So Phil, I've asked Phil to at least give you a picture of what a reduced project would look like, and then we can chat. So Phil, I'll pass it over to you.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, put the presentation up. There's other slides here we don't have to talk about, but I do have, maybe we could just start with that. But there was some question on the facility condition assessment. The town has put forward the Jacobs report, 50 million, and the Collier's report. So we spent some time going through both of those reports in detail to sort of represent the data in a little bit of a better way for you to understand what is applicable, what has been done. I've been meeting with Jason on what he's been doing over the last several years. And it was important to sort of separate the wheat from the chaff when we look at this whole assessment thing. So I have a presentation on that. We don't have to go into that now, but we can talk about whether you want to discuss that later. So,
Yeah, I have you on the agenda for talking a little bit more about the alignment. This one's more about the project.
yeah, so let's skip through a number of these. They're all I put them all on this one PowerPoint, so just keep going. Go, 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 go. Keep going. Go, 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 go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, this is all good stuff for facility condition stuff. So keep going. Oh, okay, right there.
This one?
Yes. So if you broke this up into phases, what are the logical phases? Well, one is to include the elementary and high school proposed work that we have in stage 2, which is around $9 million. I rounded it up to $10 million. If we constructed the Cafeteria Edition, which was in front of the building, we're estimating about $4 million for that component. It's a little bit higher on the square foot cost, the kitchen equipment, utilities. It's only about 5,000 square feet, so there's a premium there. We also would propose at the same time to construct that learning suite addition that we had near the cafeteria, because that was necessary swing space to keep the students here during construction of the other wings. So we would propose building that at the same time for $3 million. Then we have the remaining middle school, which we want to renovate. We're proposing at about $350 a square foot to renovate that entire existing building. So let's talk about this from a programmatic standpoint. This does not include Guam or that addition off of the back. In fact, we're proposing minimal work in either two of those wings. From a programmatic standpoint, the existing building has classroom spaces that we're going to remain classroom spaces, and it had some office spaces that were going to remain office spaces. So I'd like to use this term, we are doing no harm in this first phase. We would propose doing about 70 to 85% of the site work at about $1.5 million, and that totals $45 million. Based on these projects, if we start construction by the end of next year, you are now eligible for only 10% of the incentive bonus, which would turn your reimbursement from 42.8 to 52.8. Go ahead to the next slide. Phase 2 is obviously the remainder of the work, the educational wing, and any remaining site improvements. The last slide I want to show here is what we're talking about. So this is the Cafeteria Edition in the front, the learning studios swing space on the side. We would propose to do a significant amount of the site work and connect up here. We could even look at the site plan and it has the road that starts to go off there. What this does do is it does address an immediate site problem you have in separating the parents from the buses and the Chevron parking. You see outlined the proposed wing addition in the future. So basically, if you were to do the site work, you have done no harm, basically. You're able to come back, knock out the addition and the new construction here. If you go back to the previous slide, I think I said phase 2, maybe 2030. And now you can go back to this one. You know, over the next 5, 7 years, enrollment may spike, it may decline based on how the existing building is renovated. With these learning suites that we're adding, maybe Guam could come off earlier for some reason, or maybe this addition could come off earlier for a reason. But I wouldn't get too concerned about programmatically what happens here. We're asking, let's go back a couple slides to the numbers. You know, a significant $350 a square foot for that existing building is a significant amount of money to invest and renovate. Certainly the school will look new, obviously with the new program spaces as well. That's our proposal that's where about half of this project would take you, which is about half of where we're at.
Yeah, the $26 million for the renovation. Can you just give like a bullet point, like quick scope of what you would see in that space?
Well, sure. I mean, that's a complete renovation. It's obviously all the mechanical systems, electrical, fire protection, finishes, programmatic changes, the gym, the auditorium, and the cafeteria that we're adding anyway, which is part of this. Plus any enhancements to the exterior to complement the site work that we're proposing, you know, the entrances, et cetera. So that's, in our opinion, that would be a comprehensive renovation.
So you're saying that the new building, to put up the new wing or building, is only $35 million?
And what?
You're 45 million, 35 more is 80.
89.
That's
89 million.
Because we borrowed 89, we did for 89, but you only took 81.
That's because
Yeah, but we're getting 8.5 million at paygo, so we're still getting.
we won't get that much now.
No, getting that much.
They go,
So PAYGO
So,
will,
yeah, we still qualify for paygo.
they're not the same amount.
Well, it'd be, it's a percentage of 15% of our 42%
Yeah.
increase.
So how about the
So
turf field?
35 million for the new building.
What, the turf field?
so the turf field,
You're up to 85.
so now, again, this is a high level estimate. We would want to do a lot more.
So part of, things to think about, you know, even if we presented this, my suggestion was we gotta, you know, you still have to present the full project because there's definitely a cost saving by doing the whole project now. Because if you do it in 5 or 10 years, we're competing with inflation, rising interest rates, we're losing 5% bonds. So we have to run the numbers and say, okay, you can do this to 2 phases, but it's going to ultimately cost taxpayers, if done fully, $110 million versus 89.
Well, they were only a PR, CCs, and all of that. We're actually not losing 5%, we're losing 15% on that.
Well, you're losing
In 10 years,
5%.
we won't get any.
That's true. The bonus is true.
May not, we don't know.
We may not, and we could have better.
Right.
Who knows?
And
We have to
don't know.
assume that.
Can I also throw this out, because I am at the building itself. The center wing that you were proposing, this proposal, is great, but that's not the only place that I have issues and problems. I have old problems. I get a 50-gallon barrel of water every 12 hours in a wing that we are not even touching yet. I have mold, I have bacteria, I have all kinds of things that you could think of inside those rooms. Teachers are getting really angry, and I can almost guarantee if it went out in public that we would be in some serious trouble. We try to contain it, we keep it, and my custodians are doing a wonderful job. And there are issues that have to get tackled.
Is the
So-
mold within the whole building?
It is in a lot of sections of the building. So it would be some of the sections that this project would cover, but it's also the top part where the cafeterias are really filled in. And we don't know what, if it's drainage problems, if it's, problems that like maybe even when they built the place, that pipes were broken because they were trying to join things. It could be over time, it could be like when developments in the back, other buildings and stuff got built, and rain off in areas, water table, like there's so many different factors. And that is a huge issue.
Are you also
So-
saying that the whole thing has to be demolished in order to?
I am telling
remedy
you that
everything?
other wing
Yeah.
where they build it, that is a major.
Well, Guam
problem.
has stuff going through, I mean, I don't understand how, because we've talked a lot about just moving kids around, and now we're throwing that out the window, we're saying that's not important. And then Guam, we have those lifts, I mean, there's that one room where they put the floor over the car lifts and it's caving in, and
Right, because they
Yeah,
slide
it's
right
just-
over,
I-
it, they didn't take them out. I have a room that right now I can't use because like I have to, so now I'm trying to move people to different rooms and trying to figure things out. And space is getting very limited because of things that it's just, there's problems with drainage and we're having problems with mold and things like that. And we thought at first it was just humidity. It is still going on right now. The humidity is gone. So it's definitely coming from other areas besides that. We had a really rainy year, that we saw this year, that it developed a lot worse than what we did. I have custodians coming in at 3 o'clock in the morning to do floors and to try to get stuff done. They have to do the floors every like 6, 7, 8 days, 12 days, because they can't keep up with it to try to get the stuff off the floors that's coming through. And and I had some complaints with teachers that actually went out to the doctors and things like that, like, I mean, so.
but just to be clear though, we get the air quality tested and stuff, so I want to be clear that kids aren't in an unsafe place, like we just had it tested, we had a room, so I just want to be clear about that, Joe.
Right,
But
right,
the
but we
glue's
gotta move
coming-
people. We gotta
Right, no,
move
the
people to
glue's
get
coming
them.
through the floor. It's a disaster. The building is a disaster. And my disappointment is that, I don't know how many town council members have heard, because I've heard you guys ask to be called. I've asked the teachers, the union president, the union rep at the middle school to make sure they're reaching out, and I don't know if you're hearing. See, so like, Joe, one of the things you can take back is like, they've got to start speaking up, not just to you,
And-
too.
And I have said it back with the
No, but I'm
presentation that I
saying,
just
you know-
had. I mean, there's so many, there's a lot that, and I agree that people need to speak
Yeah.
up because it's like, they need to hear like what's going on.
Probably
I have a
true, yeah.
question for you. Even with $89 million, the whole thing is not going to be demolished, only certain sections. So I mean,
The 89 million will take care of the sections that we're having trouble with.
we'll take care of the sections, but there will be no sections that are remaining that are still going to be
Giving us trouble.
problematic.
Not the way they are now.
No, everything comes out, like the
Yeah.
most problematic section, which is the cafeteria section, where it's the worst.
Can you go back just so that they could,
Go back that
maybe
plan.
just to see? So that's where the new existing, print is. That's where we're having, major problems.
Absolutely.
I could, if I could just get up real quick and just kind of show you where we're having problems. This is, on this is the area where we're struggling. So we struggle from up here, down here, this is where we're getting a ton of water, like water, moisture, humidity, and then right here, up to this room right here. And a lot has to do with just the pitch of what the the
I
land
was
is.
gonna say,
the
there
way
is a
that-
pitch there between those
Yeah,
two buildings.
Roof runoffs, and in years past, just I think in the past, just, you know, you gotta remember this was here and then everything else got developed around it. So I think that's where water tables and I think this is just for me from doing it, from looking at it. When they put stuff in, you know, you got heavy equipment that's driving over stuff, breaking stuff, all kinds of different drainage, stuff like that, trying to tie into existing things that weren't meant for different sections to come together. So this is really where we struggle big time. This a little bit here, but really it's all over here. But then there's the ventilation. Then there's the parts for the heaters that now we just can't get parts for. It takes weeks, days, maybe even sometimes we had a year where we didn't have heat in certain rooms because we just didn't have parts. So there's so many things that while this does this well, this is still a problem. It's going to be up here and we have to address it and say, what are we going to do with that? So that's just, you know, to get everybody's insight.
Long's
where
an
that
issue
is.
too, though, it's not.
Yeah, absolutely,
So-
because we get moisture problems all up here. This whole heating and air conditioning system when we have is a mess. Up here, this is where they cemented over all of the metal existing lifts and everything, instead of taking them out like they should have. But now all the floors and everything are starting to cave in. Like, there's so many things that, you know, and I tell everybody, come see it, come for tours. I'll give you tours on it. I'll show you exactly what's going on, you know? So, I mean, this is the stuff when I bring people in, and Lisa and Ben did come in, and they saw it. One of the other ideas was have it held here, have the vote held here so people could see it. And I tell them, come in. And this is no dig to my custodians, because they are phenomenal. And they are working way above and beyond the best crew that I honestly, of all the schools, I have the best crew, hands down. And they're workers, but they're making it the best they can with the existing problems that still are arising, with the roofs leaking, with everything. You know, all of the roofs were starting to come to rubber roofs over years. The sun kills it. They start leaking through. We can't find spots. We're chasing all kinds of leaks. And you know, we're trying to do the best we can, but we're shutting bathrooms down, even up here, because pipes are all rusted and rotten out. We don't have place. We got to shut bathrooms up here because we can't find where it is. It's inside the ground, and it's actually inside the cement that when they did the other projects, they cemented everything in. So we're trying to figure out and run things. So we're going down, and it's just, you know, over time. I mean, we're finding solutions because that's what our job is. But it's just difficult. And by doing that 45 and just taking care of this does not resolve that.
So duly noted. And I want, you know, be prepared, because I'm going to need you on the 22nd, because I think it would be very effective for you to give a pointed, brief but pointed overview of the conditions, because this is the stuff that I think is getting lost a little bit. And I think it'd be very effective. I agree with Craig and Nick. Committee needs to be out more front. I need to actually take a step back. This is becoming my project. It is not my project. It is a town project. It is a committee's project. So I need to lean on you as my committee to stand out front. So to that end, you know, I'm not absolving myself. I'll provide support, but come this presentation, I'll give a portion, small portion of this presentation, but I'm going to count on the committee to take the heavy water on this one, because this was a collaborative effort getting here. It needs to be a collaborative effort to see this through. I want to go through, Lee, your perspective on this.
We're still gonna push the food carts, the football field, to get them there.
No, that would be resolved by the Cafeteria Edition. So that would be.
So you could go back to the drawing.
Oh, sorry.
So essentially, after building the kitchen and cafeteria here, these two spaces that are currently used for that function would come offline.
Okay. What I'm concerned about is if we reduce it and we say, okay, we'll take 45 million. I'm afraid there's going to be another project that's going to appear, and there's going to be a bond for $20 million, $30 million. It's going to be proposed to do some essential thing for the town. And now you're not going to have the bond money available a few years from now to do a phase 2. That's number one. Number two, the other surrounding towns and cities in this state are getting state-of-the-art facilities using this program. And we're saying that the 5th largest community in the state of Rhode Island cannot do
a state-of-the-art facility. Does not sound well, does not sit well. We really need, we're talking about trying to improve education, getting our kids to graduate at the level they should be as we thought we were at my school level. And now we're turning around and saying, well, we don't, we should go forward with what we put together in a total review of all of the school facilities in this city. And we should say, this is what we want. And we should, hopefully, the town council says yes, and we put it up to the voters. And hopefully the voters understand where we're coming from. And we get facilities squared away. If we want to go phase 2, we can go back to Western, we can go to all of the other schools and say, okay, let's fix this and let's fix that. And the schools will be fabulous. But, right now we have a major issue with the middle school. It took you people a long time to convince me that we needed it to do it. And I'm totally behind it because it is perfect sense and it's perfect for this town.
Appreciate the perspective. John?
I've kind of been taking everything in. And I really feel that this should really go as the project that we designed. I know, and I know what you've been saying about what if we need town roads, what if we need this, what if we need that. But I got to be honest with you, not spending on something you know you need because there are what ifs out there is not a good way of going forward with anything.
Oh, I
If you
know
have
what
a
you're
known,
saying. They're not what ifs. There is a known need for roads and everything else. Johnson's Pond people want us to take the pond by eminent domain. I mean, there are so many
But are
pressures.
we gonna
yeah,
do
but
those projects anyway?
you, what I'm saying is you have a plan, you have a project in front of you. You know you're gonna need to do roads, but you have no plans and you have no projects in front of you. So unless you have a known project and known plans, you can't say we're not gonna do one thing because of another.
I understand that.
We know we have a big need here. We know that we can get it significantly reimbursed through the state. We know that not moving the project forward is not going to eliminate the need for the project. The need is still going to be there. And if you can't afford it now, what makes you think you're not going to have the same excuse for not doing it 10 years from now? Every year, all towns, the state, everyone gets new administrations in all the time. They get new town managers, new governors, new whatever. Everyone comes in with wanting to make changes. I understand that. But a lot of times, you still need to continue on with what's been planned and what your people have been doing, because if you stop everything every time you get a new town manager, a new governor, a new whatever, you're never going to make any progress on anything. So I really think we need to stick to our original plan here. We need to make the best case for the scenario, for the need, make our best funding plan, and move that forward.
Wilson, thank you. Greg, you wanna?
Yeah,
I
and
think I know
just-
your perspective.
Just to be clear, I'm not a voting member, so I
Right, yeah.
Dave wouldn't- but I probably have, and I shouldn't say this because Dave probably could have a strong opinion. I mean, my feeling is, we're in leadership, all of us, we've chosen to be here, and I think it's time, we need to lead, and I think this committee has led. And I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about the process and working with the town, and, I said to Luke, I said, maybe everything's a fight, right? But I feel like my job is to look out for the future of this community, for the students, for the parents. We've been through a hell of a 2 years. I mean, listen to people being quarantined, dealing with kids, dealing with work. It's been tough on everybody. And, all I hear about Coventry and, like, you know, is there's a lot of negativity about the budgets and things like that. But I feel like it's our responsibility to lead, I think, as a school department, and not pitting the schools against the town. We continuously talk about how we're using funds to generate different revenues. We did virtual net metering. We went out to bid for natural gas. We're purchasing some vans to try to reduce by $200,000 or $300,000 a year. The town has the same opportunity. We just haven't heard those conversations yet. I know you're going to talk about your COVID funds and things, but there's other ways. I proposed a little piece at one of the town council meetings about how we can continuously take housing aid, right? Because the question is, well, how are you going to continue to invest in your capital? And we met with Department of Ed, this SBA, and they said, you know, the money we use from operations, put in, you know, we get that approved, and say we use 600,000 to do projects, we get percentage back in housing aid. Then we reinvest that, you know, and then it was kind of dismissed at the town council. My point is that we're trying to be creative here. We know there are other needs in the school, there are other needs in the town, but I feel like this committee has vetted those things. Mr. Murray, you've tried to get the information, which is public information, and we haven't been able to get that. I'm saying we're trying to do, like Christine said, that if we're wrong, we're wrong. My feeling is that this was dead from certain people's perception from the get-go. At least that was my take, and I feel, and I've said that privately, just, you know, the town manager, he and I talked about, I felt it's, you know, you need to understand where we're coming from, where this committee has 2.5 years. I fully understand it's been a tough, you know, to walk into the situation, you got to pass a budget and then to have this big project. I understand that. But I feel that if we're going to lead, we need to lead with what's been put forward. And I walked out of that meeting with you and Mr. Sands. I'm not the financial guru here, right? But I try to facilitate the work, what's happening in the schools. But you both had said that didn't make sense to you, right? So I'm feeling that I agree with Christine that, you know, we put it together. We felt that it is feasible. You're never going to have this opportunity to get this funding back. Materials are going to continue. You know, inflation is going to happen. And, you know, so I can't support, you know, again, I won't get in the way if the committee does. I'll just keep my mouth shut, but I can't support this. And in full disclosure, I let, you know, Mr. Murray know that. I mean, there's no secret here. But I feel like this community needs this. I look at these Providence, you know, look at their test scores, they're in the tank, but there's this towny mindset, and that new building has done wonders for the community. And I feel like we need that here in Coventry. You know, there's a crisis every day here, you know, like Johnson's Pond and the windmills and, you know, sewers, and what's next? We have an opportunity to do something great, I feel. Again, I don't live here, I'm not a taxpayer, but I spend all my money in Coventry, I can tell you that.
Well, at least at the food joint.
At least
right?
the food, that's right.
Pizza.
All right.
Pizza, the tax dollars, but anyways, I just feel that.
So I'm gonna put you down for opposition to the plan B.
No, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't say a word unless
No,
I'm asked my opinion. I mean, if the group was, you guys are the voting members. I just feel that, I don't even feel this should be on the table. I understand the conversations, but my feeling is, it's, you know, it's not respectful of the work that's been done here. And I do believe the financial plan is feasible. And I understand you guys, there's issues in this town. I hear it, I watch the committee about the town and, you know, the roads and what's gonna be done in this district. But these have been here for years. Come on, like, who are we kidding? There's been no capital invested, you know, and we just have to make it work long term. I mean, we have to figure it out. But throwing in the towel on this project, to me, is not figuring it out. But, all right, that's it, I'm done.
All right. And
You know, I believe that there is a need. I've been in the schools for many years, and this is my 9th year roaming around the schools. 6 years on the school committee. I've been in every single school. I've been in every single classroom, been to PTA meetings, etc. So, you know, I am convinced there is a need. I understand the need that you have. And when I talked to Luke, I said to him, I want to see one project, one financial plan. I do not want to have a town council meeting in which there are some ideas on the table. Some people are starting to question whether we actually need this project or not. It needs to be a clear path that this is the need. And I did want to see, my plan is better than your plan, because there is a disagreement between these financial plans in some ways. And I just didn't want to have a town just disintegrate, a meeting disintegrate, because we're trying to pit one group of people against the other. That is an extremely destructive thing. So I want to come out of this going to the November 22nd meeting with one project, one solid financial plan, no matter how we get there, that needs to be done. And my question is, who will fight for this? Because no one has actually approached any council members to ask us to support this. At the last referendum, the budget referendum, I know the effort I put in, I know the effort that the superintendent put in. Kathy put in some effort, Luke did a lot of effort, and I mean, some of us did a lot of effort just to get the budget passed. And I only passed it like about 147 votes over the 141. It wasn't much considering all the effort and the money that we volunteers put in out of our own pocket. It's tough to get a vote. It's very tough to get a vote. And so if we're going to present a project for 89 million and one financial plan, I want to know who's going to be out there to support this and make it happen, not only in March of 2022, but on a sustained effort to make it happen. Because it's not just one vote. It is a vote for a successive number of years, no matter how you cut it or where the cash flow problem is going to be, when it's going to be, you need a so much minor. It's convincing people that this is a commitment for the future. And I don't see that energy yet to make it happen over a sustained period of time. So sure, we might be able to get the referendum passed, but then what happens? I don't want to see things collapse.
You're saying the council.
Huh?
We might be able to get it passed, not through council, but then.
No, I think just in the referendum.
And even at the referendum, but then what happens?
But isn't that a cultural change that needs to take place in Coventry? I mean,
Cultural change takes years.
yeah, but I think,
Yeah.
but that's what needs to happen. And we don't have the luxury to wait years.
No, we don't, but we've been talking about cultural change for like 8 years now. No, it's very tough.
Let's get the respect of other people.
But anyway,
Yeah, we can have a dialogue. I just want to make sure everyone's heard.
I want to see it
Done.
sustained.
Then we can battle. I think, Kathy.
I understand why there was talk about doing something different, maybe trying to put with, today's 1 and 2. Personally, not being on the school building committee, that plan would not excite me if I was a taxpayer. It has nothing. They won't even, what do you show them? It's not exciting at all, quite honestly. The model of a new middle school potentially is so much more exciting. So personally, I think there's a need. Obviously, we all know there's a need. I worry that if we try to do this, phase 2 will never happen. People will, there'll be new administration, new people at the table, new town councilors and school committee members, the whole like that. And who knows whether or not it will unfold again, Because people will say, well, they've been hanging around this seemed to have worked for 10 years, so why are we getting anything different? And so I agree with Lee in the sense of it doesn't show any real new way of teaching, no new up-to-date sort of space that really guides our kids into the future, So that piece, I'm so disappointed in. I could get 100% behind a plan that actually built classrooms in a different way, which is what this middle school is. And then just the whole need for that whole campus. When it's done, I know you'd have to go to the middle school and actually look inside and see how this has changed. It might look brighter or better or whatever, but we still have an old school. Before, some of that original building is the original old high school that was here. Then it went to a middle school, and then actually the technical school was built. So all of it's old really. It's like I worry about just spending 26 million on renovate. Well, the new cafeteria and the new swing space obviously would be new, but the rest of it's still old. Even if you renovate it, do all kinds of stuff, it's still old. And I worry about what that will mean in the future. And so I say, bite the bullet. As a committee member, I'm not willing to say I'm giving up on you. Spend way too much time thinking about it and getting excited about it, and to split it up with no guarantee
no guarantees. And the most exciting piece of that project may never get built. May never get built. And I'm not willing to let that go.
Appreciate your perspective. You already had your hack? When I walked in, she said, I already had my hack over, right, today, so. Right.
I think that this project wasn't selfish, right? It was meant to reach as many people in this community as we could get. It was not, a river or Johnson Pond or a windmill or whatever it was. This was a project that was meant to touch the entire community. And so I think that, like, if we don't move forward on this and, we talk about, oh, well, like the what if, like you were saying. Like, to me, that's disappointing because this project should be the here and now. This is it. Like, this is a need. It's not a wish list. It's mold. It's people getting sick. It's just a project that needs to happen. Like, and I think it's great that we convinced you that this was the project that needed to happen. And I remember all those meetings that we had where you weren't convinced. And I just think that we are all so well versed in this project that we could get everybody on board with that. And it's so frustrating that it all comes down to finance because it's a need. And I think if it doesn't go as an $89 million project over the long term, it's going to cost more money. Schools are going to get worse. They're not going to get better. There's not going to be the money there to fix them. To your point, you're right. Like, it's a half-finished project. I don't see another bond vote going through in 10 years for the rest of that project. I just see a half-done project when I look at that. And I don't know. I'm not willing to accept that. So I have a few different things. And looking at this, it makes me think, I don't know if anyone else has seen the show, but it's called Love It or List It. And they live in a house and they have a interior designer and a realtor. And they're like, this is our budget. And as the project goes forward, the interior designer finds all the electrical problems, mold problems, and all the beautiful things she was going to do don't end up happening because they have to fix the real stuff in the wall. And 9 times out of 10, people are like, I'm going to spend more on a new house instead of living in this house that you just made it safer. Like, you didn't really make it better. You fixed my roof and you fixed my wiring, but I'm not happier in my home than I was. So I'm going to leave. So that's just what it makes me think of. Secondly, I know there's a lot of new players coming in on the town side, council, town manager, finance director. But just because we weren't part of it does not mean this is a half-baked project. This project fully baked has a lot of thought behind every aspect of it. So I think in not doing the project, it makes me think of the annual budget where we ask experts to give us a budget for the town. We say to our finance people, what do we need? And our finance people come forward and they say, this is what we need as a budget increase in order to get to what we need and move it forward with it. Maybe have some money in a capital improvement, really kind of help move us in a direction. And then at the very end, we're told no. And then we have to scrape and claw and remove. And that's what this is. It's scraping away. So if we're not going to do the 89, if we're listening, if you're like, with $89 million, we're going to fix 3 schools. And at the end, it's like, well, we can only fix it. At least you really fix it. This is one school, one project. I'd rather the $89 million project fail than this project. I'd rather start from scratch. Than just suddenly be like 4 weeks before 5, because it just sounds, it has an issue very good. So, we can't pretend financing isn't a large aspect of it. So having answers on that, on the Jacob report. But I mean, if you're just going to be like, we're going to ask money for money for what we need, say, this is a $56 million for the Jacob report, got it? And I would say we're gonna put a project forward to the voters that should be what we believe in. And the voters are split, they are on everything else. We've got our definite no's, I don't care what you ask for. I know that, I get a lot of this, I know the schools need it, and I'm not gonna vote for it. And then you get the people who are like, well, yeah, it sucks, I don't wanna pay for it, but we need it. So there aren't a lot of people who are like, yeah, we need it, but for 45 billion instead of 85.
They have people on tax free who will not vote for this.
But I went to the
That's a
senior
risk to
center
take.
and 60 people said they would,
Budget anyway.
so.
There are no to every budget yet.
I know, I understand that. I mean, I want to see the sustained effort.
No, I just do, we
We need a
you guys.
sustained effort, and it has to be more than just to get out the referendum vote. It has to be to get out that vote in, May for the budget, and it's a sustained effort year after year, because the estimate is that you're gonna need about 4% minimum every year.
And I also don't want to pretend that that 4% we're gonna need every year is this bond. Like, this bond is, like I said at that last meeting, this is our mortgage. It's the same amount of money every year for 25 years.
It's an
The
operation.
3% annual increase that was added into that spreadsheet is our operational budget. If we need 3% a year, we do. But this project and the way that it impacts what the schools or their capital improvement requirements, the first few years, I'm fine with this being kind of how those capital improvements are maintained. Over time, we have to figure out how to increase that budget. But that's another story. But
Let me, Boyd, just want to say a chance, I'll speak and then open it up for final discussion.
So, I think when we talk about kids, we talk about the fact that when they're feeling really anxious, whatever, their engine speed is up. Right now, my engine speed is really up. So I'm gonna say just a little bit, a real little bit, because I'm fearful. But I just want you to think, if we let this go, I believe 100% with what you said, Kim, that the sincerity is not there. Like, our hearts are in this. We've been doing this for years now, not months, not days. We've been doing this for years. We've been talking about this for years. And it's not just like we really would love this, our heart, it's we really need it. I just want you to think about what Joe just said in terms of time, that every single day, he's dealing with a mold problem, a heating problem. That means Joe is being taken away from what he does in the schools every day, which is an instructional leader. He can't do that because he's handling all these other things. So if you want to talk about money, think about the amount of money we're losing in people in our schools right now that have to deal day in and day out with these problems. And the middle school is the worst, but it's happening in 4 of our elementary schools every single day. Go talk to those principals and ask them what they're dealing with in terms of building issues. Every day you saw them. So if we kick this can down the road and we don't do this, then every other thing that needs to be done is kicked down how many more decades? That is what is going to happen. And I love the community, I love the schools, and I think that this is a really bad decision for us to go in with a half project. We need this and we need to do it. I'm going to say it's speaking of higher.
All the agencies.
I am absolutely against a half project.
So I'll be the last one to speak on this. First of all, I want to say I really respect this committee. I think you all speak with a very good tone and voice, and it brings me more to the conclusion that the committee needs to be out front of it. Because your heart and soul has been in it, and we didn't get here alone. In the fact that you can articulate so well the issues is, I really respect it. To that end, I wanted to put this on the table out of respect for the council president, because I think it was an olive branch to sort of say, here may be a path forward. I'm a victim, right? Because I work in municipal. I understand roles there, but I'm also a taxpayer, and I'm a parent. And I'm a committee member. I'm a school committee. And I try to look at things various ways and say, from all those views, what works? can tell you unequivocally that I am still in full support of the whole plan. Having a construction background, I know it works. Pragmatically, as a taxpayer, I know it's going to ultimately save us money. I know it's the right thing to do operationally. It will save us on the operational costs moving forward. As a school committee member, knowing my cafeteria problems, my food costs, a lot of the other things that are tied to this, that is a big issue. All of that is resolved. And I think that's how I have to speak to it. Also, you know, I try to play devil's advocate and say, well, if we did this renovation early, maybe we could show off the renovated part and say, look at the old portion, look at the new portion. What do you want for the future? But I think all the points here are well made. We've seen time and time again in this town that have people that select the memory. There's no guarantee for phase two. And, you know, I think the better option is to build the whole thing and say, look at the middle school. Now we need to look at the rest of the district, because this only still gets us maybe halfway there. The full project maybe gets us halfway there. I've said it again and again, we have $200 million project. The last thing I'll say is, having lived in the town for a long time, I've said it again and again, we need a win. And I think Craig's absolutely right. It's always an issue. It's never something we can hang our hat on and be proud of. At least not in the last 20 to 25 years of that. So nothing we can point to and say, boy, that's a source of problem. And I think the public would really engage in that. If you look at East Providence, what's going on now, that thing is all over the news. People are proud of that vote, whether they're against it or not beforehand, they're for it now. And so it takes a lot of will and a lot of tenacity to get to that point. And I respect that. And I respect the committee for putting their foot down, you know. If what I'm hearing is that we should move forward, we'll move forward, you know, just understanding, you know, the pragmatic side of me says, well, better to get something than nothing. Not always. No, not always. And you're absolutely right. Like, we don't want to, because that, quite honestly, what I'm hearing, it is. It's exactly what we did. We're going to repeat the mistake we made 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we funded $46 million to build that school on a swamp and to do a cafeteria move, which resulted in moisture problems. And there were budgetary concerns and there were cuts moved. And so that was all based on this financial equation, right? How do we make it work? We baked up a good project. I have exactly the opposite problem in South Kingston. They weren't for the project. They were in a great financial picture. Here, the dialogue is about the financing and not about the project. We are on board with this project, unequivocally. So I think it's important that if we are going to move forward with the full project, that we have the people here speak to that. And the things we heard tonight, which have not really been discussed, is the fact that this is the project, here is the why, and move forward.
So this is the financing.
It
That
is.
is a big list. That's what people are very concerned. I think
So Phil is actually gonna talk to that, the Jacobs. You think I'll have a full presentation on Jacobs? I heard what the council was saying. And the financing, here is the key with the financing. The building committee has put forth a reasonable plan to fund this. 1.99%, build it in reserve. Once it's built in, you have the fund. Take the debt fall off that is already going to fall off and make it work. I know unequivocally that financial picture works. Harold Sands, our finance director, unequivocally knows this works. I have not heard anything from the town to say it doesn't. So unless they can come back to us and say why specifically this does not work, take out the operation increases, because it doesn't matter. We have, if you're talking about 3% increases for the duration of time, you're going to have to do it anyway. If this bond fails, you will be at that 3% for the next 20 years, according to them. But you have built zero value. There is no investment. So, and I said as well, John made a great point. The town has no clear CIP that identifies specific projects for the municipal side. If the conversation that is, we're building a new town hall in 5 years. This will sacrifice that. That's a conversation we can have. But we spent 2.5 years coming up with a project. It is fully baked. It is ready to go. It's got over 50% reimbursement to the state. And by the way, it's not an $89 million project. It's a $56 million project or whatever it is with interest. It's not an $89 million project to the town. So I obviously have a strong opinion on this, having been in the trenches. But, you know, I am very in favor of moving forward with the whole project. I was ready to bend tonight if that was the will of the committee, but I'm proud of the committee for standing with it.
I understand all of your financial emails and how you break it down with all your comments, and I can see the facts. I agree with you that I don't understand town finance side of it to say no. So who gets them to give us a reason with a fully vetted explanation of why not?
So the town manager and the administration work for the town council and for the taxpayer, but ultimately, but there's a buffer, right? You communicate with council, who then communicates with the town manager, and they speak with one voice. So this is what I asked for one of the previous meetings, was you need to direct the town manager, and there was a directive. See how we can make this work. There may be a feeling across the street that they're doing that by sort of laying this information and saying, here, but you know the conversation we had in that meeting. I mean, it took us 20 minutes to get to, this is how a reserve fund would work. I should not have to educate somebody on how a reserve fund works. My feeling. If I was not here as a municipal person, that would not have been resolved. And I'm not, you know, so.
Members in here right now,
Right.
that I say, to both of you,
Christine, here is the presentation that was made by the town council and the finance director. About, you've seen that, and then you saw with Luke's notes on it.
yes. So, but my question to the both of you is, do you feel like the town side has given you a clear path on why not?
No, because the other night in the meeting, it actually took me to the end of the meeting to realize, because the 3% is growing. I was like, why is this? Why are we showing all this? Why is all of these, why are all these increases for the certification? And even though it was obvious, it wasn't until I was looking that I was like, oh, they just baked in every budget increase we'll ever have for the next 25 years. And I still had questions that night because they didn't add in any levy for this project until the full amount is used. And we did ask about that. And I was like, why are we doing this? So there are multiple questions that I need answered from all sides, not just the town, who are still questioning, can we attach a levy? Hopefully we can't, because it only makes sense. But if we can't, then my proposal is we still want 4% budget. And part of it is the building. Like if the building got approved in March, well, then we have to put the financing for this plus the financing for the town into this year's budget. It needs to be 4%. If people approve it or don't, that's going to be because of how I think we marketed it. Because if this bond passes, that budget doesn't, we didn't convince people to vote for the budget. You know? So even though can we put this levy as part of the bond vote, I find that to be an important question because voting at the same time, we guarantee the funding for this budget, which leaves me as a town council member. I don't know my fiduciary role in a better place. Yeah. But I don't know my fiduciary status. Like, so that actually concerns me more is to have go yes to a bond. They did it. They voted yes to a budget this past couple of years and voted no to the levy at the today's meeting. They don't understand that. Well, it's why I said this before I became a council member. I do not think the residents of the town should be able to vote on the budget. It makes sense. It's not a right. It's idiot. And we don't.
So this is one of the reasons, Christine, we're activating the charter review commission and town and the Coventry Building Committee have collaborated, and this is what the plan is that we feel will best work to support this particular project.
So along those lines, I have asked in previous weeks for the finance team to meet with the manager. I have met with them. It obviously wasn't just us. There was a team put together for a reason. It was so the team got fluent in the numbers, and the team could speak to the finance, not me. So, my proposal would be for the group, and I want to hear your feedback on it, is that we don't engage in any talk unless it includes the finance team. Because the building committee needs to operate as a unit. They've done the work. And when we get into these talks, I think it'd be more effective for not me. Because to be honest, I'm established myself as almost the adversarial lightning rod. And I shouldn't be. That was never the intent. But I think because I'm the face of the project so much, it's become that. I need to get out of the picture and let the committee take the lead.
So Luke, I guess I'm gonna go back with Christine, because I feel like there is a struggle between getting the numbers on the town side. So how are we gonna get those numbers? That's really where we're at, because we're struggling. And then that is, we need to get that before we can move forward. So how does that get done so that we get exactly what we need? There is no more, this is what the town said, this is what the building committee said, and then now we're still in it like a.
So there was a feeling that the spreadsheet that was formulated was intellectual property. I responded that it's not intellectual property because it was done by town finance director with town property in proposed and total form, therefore subject to town. I've asked Dave to look into it and speak with the town manager. I actually asked John Anderson to speak with Dave, and then I'm trying to resolve. If we don't get cooperation, it is anything that is prepared and already exists that doesn't have to exert an undue burden on a public authority, it's subject to act. As is, that spreadsheet is still in there. I'm not a trained.
I gotta be honest, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to think of all everything in, and I am blown away that we have a town that always says that we're working together, everything's collaborative, we're working this, and this is where we're stuck. Like, it is hard for me to comprehend.
I don't want to circle back this. We got to find a path forward. Barring that document, which is not, is it a deal breaker? No, but it's much easier to say to council, here's the original document, show me. We've made these adjustments and the numbers work. I have no doubt that in 5 minutes, I could change a few of those assumptions and the cash flow was resolved. Because it's all down to timing and when you start raising the money.
And also, I'd like to point out that if you do have a cash flow problem, we, as the person in charge of the construction, can make adjustments in the schedule to solve any cash flow problems we see coming up.
Correct.
So it's not like if we're looking at it properly and we see a cash flow problem coming, we can adjust schedules, tell them, ask them to delay work or change work around in order to avoid a cash flow issue also.
Spoken by a true
So
virgin.
it's not like if we should be able to, if we're paying attention to it, if our project people are paying attention to it, we should be able to see that before it actually happens and make adjustments so that.
I also have, I'm going to go back to the finance team. So this is a building project and we have a finance team that has come up with a plan on how to finance this, right? We presented it to the town, asked for feedback on it. They said, I say they, it sounds like their finance team is two individuals. So they have given back their ideas of how that is financed. And they're in disagreement. You've asked for clarification, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's two finance plans, right? They don't vote on whether this goes forward or not. And we don't vote whether this goes forward or not. The members of the town council vote. So I don't understand why we have to keep getting into this back and forth of finance. You have both plans, right? You guys have both plans. You have to listen to both sides, and you have to make a decision about whether or not you're going to allow us as voters to decide whether or not this should go forward. I don't understand. There's a disagreement about the financing. It's simple though. There's a disagreement. Put it on the table to the 5 council members and let them make a decision of whether we go forward.
So what I need to know as a council member, and I'm not speaking for everybody, is are these both viable? Can both of these plans? And that's actually a question right now, because, you know, a large part of moving forward is, can we raise?
But isn't that your job as a, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but if you have 2 opposing views on this, isn't it your job as a town council person to find a third party that's uninvolved and ask them, are they both viable plans? I don't know. That's what I would do. If I got, you know, I would go and ask somebody else.
I'd be more than happy. I don't know who. I would ask, if these are 2 viable plans. I put that out to the committee, like when we talk to the mobility people at RIDE, and if we talk to our attorneys, see if we can do it. No one's answering.
Bill, can I ask this? You have done this for doing projects for a long time, and not to put you on the spot. I assume that something like this has come up before. Yes or no? In other communities, and if so, how did they resolve it?
I have not seen this particular situation arise.
I would say typically you're gonna
You are
find
gonna be so well equipped for the next time.
they're more collaborative. Listen,
I
I,
will say, sorry, but Amy, I have to think beyond this project. So every year I say to the voters, and I said it before I was on the council, we've hired a finance director, and we have to let that person create a budget and move forward with it as a town. So now there's this really large project. I need to lawyer the situation a bit, because I don't want to ask, is there a project? I've reached out and I'm looking to see if this is viable, and I'm looking in as many places as I can to find out, is the proposal of having the 2% levy, will that work? Will that pay for this project? Because I can't think another town council way. So like in 4 years, there's a new town council. If they decide, we're not gonna take these bonds and let them fall off over this project, that's an issue. And I have to make sure that I'm not saying on everything, I think we should listen to our finance director accept it, because I want this project to move forward, and I think it's a really good project. So even if my finance director is gonna be like, no, I don't agree with that, moving forward with it is hard, because this isn't my only project. I've got 3
And I
more
would
years
agree with
of-
you. If the finance director was working collaboratively with the finance team. So I would agree with you 100%. Right, and I don't, it doesn't sound like it's working collaboratively. Like, why wouldn't you work collaboratively with the finance team here? That doesn't make sense to me.
But the bottom line, it doesn't have to make sense if that's our reality. And, you know, I just think that's our reality right now. And, you know, the only thing I'll say is that the first time that the finance director spoke publicly, we hadn't even met. Ms. Patno and I were there because we were going to go into meet with the committee. She'd indicated the town can afford to do the project without even knowing anything. And my feeling is that, again, I'm not a politician, so I don't really care what I say. I care about this community and schools. But that my feeling is from the get-go, there hasn't been support for the project. And I'm not inside other people's heads. And that's what the council has to decide. You're in a tough position. These are your employees. I get that. But, you know, my feeling is you're going to have to make that tough decision. And I wouldn't want to be with that. But I think it goes back to the argument that everybody else made. But there's reasons why. Like, it may not make sense, but I live this every day. So,
Amy, at one point I thought perhaps we would be able as a council to go through the project and figure out the finances later. I mean, I thought it'd be, you know, it's possible. It doesn't make sense, but it's certainly possible. But if we were to get a third party, it really would fall into our belief in the ability and confidence of our own finance director. And that to me is kind of a tricky road to go on at this particular point in time. I mean, I would prefer to see a collaboration occur in which people just sit down that's
Before we
going to
develop-
take place,
So
I'm working on it, yes.
the difficulty is, the council works as a body, just like the school committee, they speak with one voice, and they direct with one voice. They haven't provided a clear directive to the town manager that says specifically, you need to do X. Now, I can, as a chairperson, request that. Exactly what I need. What I really need is, we've proposed a plan that does X, Y, and Z, and we believe that it's funded. Show me specifically how that does not work. There are some gaps in the current plan. I didn't ask for a plan financed in 2025. She being the finance director, took the plan that Steve Mazzaroni had done for our stage 2 and applied that. That wasn't the plan we put forward. We always acknowledged it was a cash flow. And we addressed it by levying early. That wasn't the plan we put forward. So I can ask specifically for that to happen. If that is not successful, I think our next successful strategy is, although we're running out of time here, put formal correspondence to the council to compel the finance director and town manager to cooperate and answer our specific questions. They speak as a body, they can direct us.
So is that all of us emailing our, like,
You can
area reps
email
to
it.
say, hey, do this, or is that on a higher level, or you put something normally on paper to request that? I think that's what we're trying to get to, like, how do we
How
get
does this
our
move
finance committee at the table with them?
It's the dichotomy of administration, right? They don't have to, independent of the meetings and government council, even sit down. Right now, they've taken a stance of this sitting back. I know what's going on. They can do this. They can sit back and watch us implode, for us to prove it right, while they sit back and say,
Okay, but now,
They're supposed to be working for the town, and the
Right.
better of the town.
I understand.
but then that's
That
where
aside,
the town council has to say,
That
they're gonna move
aside,
this forward.
I mean, it's the
You
same
know?
thing if Craig wants to, Jackie, Craig wants to decide to run his thing a certain way, unless we convene as a body and we say, Mr. Superintendent, you need to do X. The administration has authority over the day-to-day. That's just the way it works. All right, hold on. Lee and then Kathy. And then I know, John, you're waiting. I'm sorry.
If I'm not mistaken,
Patient.
if we say that there are two plans, both plans are looking at least $80 million or $89 million to be accomplished. Okay, we have ours, they have theirs. And in their presentation, what I got out of it is that there is the money for that bond to happen, whether it's our plan or their plan. Okay, so the money is there. That's not the issue. The issue is we have a plan that has already gone forward to the state. The state has accepted it. The state said it's the best plan they ever saw. And we can press forward, and in that, we get a 50% reduction in the bond. They have no plan other than to say, we have the availability of bond money to put a plan forward, but there is no plan B. So there's only our plan. And I feel like we should just press forward with that and ignore your town manager, and you know me, it's the charter, baby. And in the charter, the town manager has two hats, municipal and town. And I fear that he continues to go back to the municipal side instead of being the town manager reporting to the town council, who has the responsibility for the effective operation of this town. And that includes keeping the schools up.
I would prefer to try to set a more positive tone on the conversation, and I understand what you're trying to say. The question is, what do we need to do between now and November 22nd, when there's a presentation, to try to come up with one project, one plan? What I heard from this group is their one project is 89 million. That's half of the decision. The next decision is, what is the financial plan? So what I will do is who can speak for you, when you're not here next week?
I'll be available if I'll be available.
I mean,
I'm available, I'm gonna be
I wanna
bringing my
try-
work computer, it's a working vacation.
Well, I want to try to, get some kind of, conversation, so that there can be one financial plan coming out
I
of
think,
the
I don't think it should be
20.
everybody, but I think these small meetings, and I didn't really cut you off, but I think these small meetings, like, I'm just not going to them unless I'm directed by Ms. Patino, because I think it's a waste of time. And
I don't care who's at this.
no, but I think it should be everybody. I mean, like,
But I will
we're a
request,
powerful force.
because I know there's a request earlier this week, which I did put on the table to offer to me, but I think what I will propose to the town manager, I will send him an email and request that he have a meeting with the finance team. Please propose the time next week. That's fine. If you want to do it, absolutely.
And also,
I asked for it instead of.
and also ask him to bring his,
Mr. Shockley's on the finance team. She can request on behalf of the finance team. I'll
ask
delegate
him
that.
to bring his presentation with the spreadsheet that we can actually put on the screen.
Okay.
Look at the formulas, look at
I would
everything.
say that is a good.
We gave him everything, we
Huh?
gave his formulation of how he went through stuff.
I just got them off the clock. That's the problem. No account.
Well, Greg has suggested
I would
everyone, but I mean, you
I
and
would
I are on the
suggest
finance team anyway. John's on the finance team.
I do think if the rest.
If it's a full building, just remember, it has to be posted.
Right, but I think it's,
It can
I'm
be.
sorry, but I think people here, like, they're so passionate, so powerful. We always talk about how credible they are and about, the quality of this, and yet we have these little meetings that amount to nothing. Like, it's a waste of time. I feel that.
I think we're agreeing with you.
Yeah, so I mean, but I think it shouldn't even be just the finance committee. I think you should invite everybody and, but,
So
and I won't come, I
Tim,
promise.
why don't you look at
I'll stay out of it.
setting something up for next week? Building committee meeting.
I'll stay out of it.
All of this on the agenda, so, hey, Craig,
Yeah,
Friday I'll get you an agenda, there'll be one topic.
Okay.
Discussion on financing for the project. So
I can put that together.
If we can get a time.
Okay.
Well, first of all.
If not, I'll give you the
Find
template.
out. Yeah, but I think so. It's not available.
It's next Wednesday?
Well, they're gonna have to see if the other day can be.
Okay.
I mean, the goal of the meeting is.
No.
Your dad's not gonna call up. I was on the field. I know exactly what my dad.
I mean, the goal of the meeting is to come out of the meeting with one financial plan. That's what has to
That's
be
the goal.
presented on the 22nd. One financial plan.
Do we need to vote on something out of this whole thing?
Unless you, so I heard, and I'd be remiss if I didn't iterate that I did talk to Alita a few times about this in general, and I said she saw the pragmatist view of like, if we needed to get something forward, we felt like the tone was that. But I believe the overall was, from a construction person's side, and knowing she's been part of the committee, is that she'd prefer to go forward with the whole project. She was willing to bend like I was with the committee's will, but I think it's pretty clear from my assessment that I don't need to take a vote unless somebody feels that they want to put a motion forward or something.
Okay, my question is, there have been times in the past where the question came up at town council meeting. Has the school committee in fact voted on it?
So with that, I'll entertain a motion that we move forward with the project as stated in our presentation to town council. So who made the motion? I didn't make the motion. He made the motion. Who seconded?
Who did, John?
John seconded.
Okay.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? One in opposition? That's six. Record that vote. So, the ayes have it. We will move forward with one.
If I were town council member right now, I would say to Ben and Lisa, okay, let's have this scenario. You just arrived, the bond is already passed. What are you gonna do? How are you going to, what kind of financial things are you gonna do to make this work? We've already got the debt, we've already been approved. Are you gonna throw up your hands and say, I gotta leave, this is the worst town I could possibly be in? Or are they going to put on their thinking cap and say, there may be another way to get ourselves So I don't feel they've done that. I think they've looked at one thing, and let's face it, when the said more than one publicly, we cannot afford it. From the very beginning, she said. When we had that meeting at the senior center, and you proposed, it was the original first proposal, I sat, right across from Lisa and Ben. And the behavior of those two, it was outrageous. They weren't even paying attention. They were laughing and whispering to each other, and because they had already made up their mind. And
I would like to get this.
I don't think that I'm just saying
Right,
that
yeah.
when that mindset happens, Ian, people, are biased toward looking at different ways. If it was an already done deal, what would they do?
Well, I don't see it that still saying we cannot, this cannot be done. They're just saying that these are the considerations that the council has to make when they make this decision. That's what they're saying.
Well, here's what I think, and I think the point Lee made. When you're a town manager, you manage for the whole town, not just, so it is his duty to say publicly, I support this 100%. And not say, I don't, or say I don't support it.
I don't.
Just like when he brings the budget forward. The manager brings forward a budget and says, this is my budget to you. I recommend you copy it. Then it goes to the town council, and they're the ones, they can say, oh yeah, rubber stamp it, great, I love it. Or they could say, no, we can't, that's not gonna
But is
work.
that his job, or is his job to crunch numbers, bring forward a plan together to see if it works or doesn't work?
It's a
And
little bit
then
of
the
both.
town council's job is to say, we're gonna go forward with that. That's really what
It's
happens.
about,
But
it's a
he's
bit of
not,
both.
they're not doing that where the numbers on both sides work, and that is where somebody has to step in and say, I need it done, I need you to come together, I need one result, I need one plan that comes forward that has all the correct numbers, and we can move on. And that's where, and then you bring it to town council, and town council says, okay. So somebody has to make them.
I
come together.
agree with you, that's what I'm agreeing with you. The only thing is, there's no such a thing as correct numbers here right now. I mean, we're looking at assumptions for 25 years out.
Yeah.
We don't know what the town is gonna look like in 25 years.
No, but you have numbers now. You have numbers of what it looks like now. And I can tell you that just over the last
Yeah.
year, you look at building supplies and materials and what went up, and you could guarantee that the $45 million that is here today will definitely not be 45 if we have to bring it forward.
So
And we're
let me,
gonna lose our sales rep.
Correct.
let me rein it in, because I think, we've exhausted this topic, and I don't want to opine on, listen, we have a strategy moving forward. We're gonna ask for a meeting, hopefully we get that meeting. If we do not get that meeting, then I believe that we need to, unfortunately, create a presentation to the council that gives them the best foot forward for the building committee, and that's it.
Yep.
And drop the mic and we move on.
I agree.
I
I
just want to give, I'm sorry, reiterate one point. I have asked several times, and I want to say it again. We have to get materials to the town council. I'm asking 7 to 10 days ahead of time. You cannot drop a package of information on the town council either the Friday night before the 22nd or on the 22nd and say, here's the plan. They will not accept that. Because even for the simplest votes that we have to take, there's a lot of deliberation that goes on. People need materials ahead of time. So as soon as this package can be put together, it needs to be disseminated. And that means it has to be disseminated to
Well, no,
everybody.
so I hear you. I would say that Phil's presentation, right, will be ready potentially for next week, right? That's fully baked. We can get that. I don't think it's reasonable that we're having a meeting on Wednesday,
Right.
that we will have package material Wednesday night. However, I would say what I said last time, which is, we're not asking for the vote at this meeting. We will have plenty of time after to answer any questions they have. This is surely a presentation, again, of information that they can sit on, ask questions. The vote won't happen until at least a week or more later.
The vote will be either the 29th, if they're ready, and if it's not, it'll be December 20th.
Right, which I prefer the 29th, really, just because we're, I hear you. We will get whatever we can to the council. I think we have a plan of action. Any last points on that? Just worthy conversation, but we're at 7:50 and haven't got anything else. I don't think we're gonna be able to get the, unfortunately, Sam, if you're still listening, actually, I don't know if he's gonna be able to get to it. I don't think it's worthy of getting the architectural RFQ discussion tonight. I think we've got to keep focused on the presentation.
Yeah, Phil, I was going to suggest the same thing, that you could probably defer until the next meeting.
Okay. All right. So feel free to stay listening, but just know that you're not going to be on the show tonight.
I have to be mentioned to the state, but I knew there was that date.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Oh, what is it?
So,
Is the middle school thing in a
so Sam Brodner has arranged with the superintendent to have a tour of the Barrington Middle School next week. They've been accommodating to get us in there. The question becomes, who goes? The whole building committee goes, we have to post it, which is, we could post it as a meeting. I would highly suggest that the members of the council, again, we can post it, they can post it as a public meeting, but that we invite the entire council to go. Because I think it's important they see what a new middle school looks like.
Can we get a tour of Coventry Middle School prior to taking them to Barrington? To really drive home the point?
If they're available in the time frames that it would have to happen.
I think 4 members have toured it, have been through it. I think there's one member that has,
Who's
Mr. LeBlanc, I believe, and I just,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't think he has since we've been there.
If if somebody has his number, get in touch with me, I can give you myself, I will give him a tour, whether it's 3 in the morning or 10, 12 o'clock at night.
I don't know if he's really done. Exactly.
No, but I think everybody else is. I had reached out early on when the council and different people had taken on.
So I put my suggestion on the table, but I want to hear from the group on, like, what you're feeling on who should go, do you want to go? Hey, Sam, what's how many people did you say kind of generally?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into specifics with Superintendent Missouri. He committed to the time, so, I think, 8 to 10 maybe would probably be reasonable. They're still, obviously, just like Craig in your schools, the COVID protocols, all those kind of things. So I think they just want to be cognizant of that. But I think it's whatever you guys think is the right number of folks to kind of really let people understand what a new school looks like, the newest middle school in the state.
Okay. So, I mean, and I don't know if everybody can accommodate the time. I don't expect that we'll have everyone being able to make it. I won't be there as well. So, do individuals here want to go? I think you'll be available to go.
I will.
I will.
I know it is a difficult time. So here's what I will do.
So if,
Okay. You'll go? Okay. The solution,
What time
would you be interested to go? 3:30 on a Wednesday. Next Wednesday.
So, yes, I do. I mean, I would look as though it's gonna kill me though, because if you don't get it. It's fine.
I know, it's just
There you go.
sticking the knife in.
So I almost wanna go after we get approved to go and look at it. But
Here's what I'll do.
You like it.
Because
I
I don't think we'll have a quorum here, but we need to know from council if more than 3 are going, or 3 or more are gonna go. Because if they have a quorum, they would have to post it. So I'll put an invite out tomorrow to the council. And
next Wednesday, but I can.
would you prefer I email just you and you can put it out?
can
Well,
move
actually, no. I can put it out as a BCC, inviting the council individuals to let me know if they're
I'll
interested.
reschedule.
And then if more than 3 respond, I'll ask them to respond by Friday. If I get more than 3 that respond, or 3 or more, I'll advise they post it as a public meeting. I don't know if we've got it, but I want to give the opportunity to all the council members, because again, I think until you really see what a new school looks like, it's really hard to get it in your head, you know. But once you see it, you get it. All right, so I'll send out that email.
Just to send them a message.
You could do that if you know that we're looking.
Who do
It
they
would be
contact? Who do they contact?
they can reach out to me.
Okay.
If you want, I can send you a message, and or you have my email, so
Are they carpooling or are they just going by themselves?
they can do whatever they want as far as that.
Okay.
We're not providing transportation. This is not a chaperone trip.
And how long do you think it will last?
Sam, how long do you think it'll last?
You know, I maybe an hour. I mean, I think it's really about questions and answers from the group will kind of dictate the length of it. But I think the superintendent can walk you through in, you know, as quickly as half an hour to 45 minutes, but maybe allocate an hour just to be safe.
That's what I'll tell them.
Everyone can go for dinner after.
And Luke, maybe just, you know, we can touch base at the end of this week just for initial head count. That way I can let Superintendent Missouri know kind of where we think it's going to be, and then we can always refine it maybe by, you know, close of business Monday, just to, you know, make sure you get everybody you need on the list.
Okay. Yeah, we want to get it together quickly, because like I said, if we have to post it, we need to know. Yeah, so that's,
That's also the same day, so that would be a Tuesday.
where's the committee next week?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
I don't think people with traffic and everything might not be able to get back here.
so you wouldn't be able to make it, actually, yeah. So Tuesday?
Like,
Yeah, you could.
so you think Wednesday still will do the 6
6 o'clock?
It would work.
Okay.
It doesn't sound like, I mean, you're going, but you.
You can do 6:30, play it safe. Is that too late?
No,
What if we did 6:30 to make it just? No?
So,
Okay, because that way it gives you a little, if you want to stop at like only Bill Wieners on the way back or something like that. Get a large cheese fry,
Get a pizza.
everything that on. That would be me, Dave.
You're saying that.
All right.
6:30
So
we'll do
we're
it here?
sticking, so we're sticking with the plan.
Yeah, we get the plan. I think Wednesday.
Or any, yeah, whatever they choose. Yes.
I'm gonna reach out to Ben and Lisa. Are they?
Yeah, I mean, I think,
They need some fun.
yeah. I think Ben and Lisa are certainly welcome. I think they should.
And I'll just do it immediately. Oh, like we come back.
So Kim, I will tell them, I'll ask the council members if they want to take it down.
Okay. Are you gonna ask them to do it?
I certainly can ask them. if they
Yeah,
would like
but
to.
certainly invited. I think it's,
Yeah, they toured with Joe, they went through the whole middle school, our middle school, so it'd be nice for them to see.
I might be able to. I can rearrange something.
all right. Just Friday is probably the, you know, the day.
Oh, I
Really.
see.
But I could go there. All right. I might try to, I talked to Sam, I might try to get up with him, you know, a small, more individual tour. So I might be able to drag one or two of you along with me, in a more intimate setting, after I get back. You missed it, to make it. And Alicia is also offered, you know, on East Providence as well, so, which is impressive from both. All right, moving on. So I know we're running late. Is everyone up since Phil made the trip? How long do you think it'll take for your presentation?
Which one, the SBA one?
The facility.
The facility condition?
Yeah.
It won't take long, because
Okay.
I just have to show one school, and
Is everyone good with getting their presentation? Okay, all right. Phil, you're on.
I'll give you the abridged version. So go ahead and take it back to the beginning, please.
We always start at the beginning.
So, okay, go ahead. Yes, we want to separate the wheat from the chaff. right, with these assessment reports. Next slide. So at this meeting, one of my partners, Pamela Babuka, is going to be available. In addition to being architects and engineers, we have another whole group that's called Facility Solutions. And we do national and international facility condition assessments. Go to the next slide. The only reason why we didn't do Coventry at that particular time was because of our workload. And we ended up making a strategic alliance with Colliers to do the facility condition assessment. Hindsight being 2020, I wish we would have done it. But Pam has gone through Jacobs and Colliers reports, and we've done over 500 million square feet of facility condition assessment. We did Princeton University a couple years ago. We just started finishing City of Stamford Public Schools, City of Waterbury Public Schools, and we're about to start the statewide New Jersey Department of Transportation assessment. It's a part of our group. So we absolutely know facility condition assessment. Let's go to the next slide. In 2020, we did a study. The annual dollars per square foot for deferred maintenance for K-12 and higher ed ranged from $0 to about $7. If you wanted to future-proof your school in 2020, if you're spending around $11 annually per square foot of your entire portfolio.
What does that mean? I'm sorry.
So every year, you would allocate in your budget $11 per square foot for deferred maintenance and repairs. So if you had a portfolio of 1 million square feet, if you wanted to future-proof your school, you would be budgeting $11 million a year in deferred maintenance. Not even Princeton University has zero deferred maintenance. All right, that every institution, no matter how well endowed, you have deferred maintenance. I'd like to find out in the next couple of days what you have been using or allocating, but I'm also interested to see when that RISE mandate kicks in, what your maintenance, where you will likely be. And I think it will be about here. So you shouldn't be surprised if there is a catch-up amount that you are faced with now. Go ahead to the next slide. Jacobs, their assessment was done in 2016, that's 5 years ago. That was based on priorities 1 through 5. Colliers was 2019, they had priorities 1 through 3. We needed to start aligning these assessments. So we based our alignment over 10 years. When we looked at the top 3 schools for each one, the only consistent one was the high school. And that's likely because of the square footage associated with it. But there were no other consistent number 2s or 3s. So now we start getting suspect of some of the data.
Bill, can I just ask you, was that also the people in charge of forward projects that needed to get done at it, or was it a team that came in and assessed what needed to be done in that?
No, there were separate teams that just came in, looked at deferred maintenance.
Okay.
Next slide. So we started with the Jacobs assessment. And, okay. There's a couple things we started to do. To make this alignment, number one is we removed the categories, bless you, technology and specialty line items from Jacobs. And that's about $9.1 million worth of work that they identified. And I want to explain what that is. Next slide. So some of the examples that they carried as costs was instructional spaces do not have sound enhancement. 113,000. Of course, they had this at Tayo, but they had it at all the other schools. Sound enhancement, this is not a deferred maintenance item. Sound enhancement is a capital improvement that is meant to help teacher retention and absenteeism. That's not applicable. Classroom AV systems in need of improvement. That was $266,000 at Western. Of course, they carried it at every school. Yes, these projectors are probably approaching the end of their useful life, but there's an expectation that technology is handled in a separate budget operationally at the school departments. At Washington Oak, they said the specialized space AV system is inadequate at $1.7 million. That is excessive and likely not a deferred maintenance item. Go next, let's go to specialties. Well, I'm sorry, this was all the technology. Go back up. Go one more forward. So all the technology on the Jacobs report totaled about $8.7 million. This, in our opinion, this is not deferred maintenance, and technology is handled differently. Next. Specialty items. So they had a list of specialty items. Room has insufficient writing area. That's $4,000 at Western, but they carried this at all the elementary, at all the schools. 5 rooms lack an appropriate refrigerator. That's $42,000 at the middle school. 6 work tables are required at the high school. So these specialty items, go ahead to the next slide. They total about $387,000, which again, we do not consider these deferred maintenance items. So we removed that. So between the technology and specialty and the Jacobs report, we immediately removed $9 million. It also helps because Colliers did not carry any of this information. So we wanted to try to balance it. Next. Then we looked at Colliers' report. We removed what they had called statutory line items, 3.7 million. We removed the capital improvement project line items that totaled about 7.4 million. And we removed known reporting errors from 2 to 4 million. So the Colliers report, we removed about 13 to 15 million. Next.
Can you go back just what, can you explain what those are?
Yeah, I will. Right here, next slide.
Oh, okay.
So Colliers, the statutory items. They had identified the need to install a sprinkler system at every elementary school. Okay, the sprinkler system does not exist. It cannot be deferred. Every year, a fire marshal walks through your schools. I am not aware of any known variances where Coventry is committed to install sprinkler systems by a certain date. These are not deferred maintenance items. Next. The capital improvement projects. Colliers, as they're going through the deferred maintenance, identified providing air conditioning at over $1 million at Western Coventry. They did this at all the elementary schools. Replacing electric heating at almost $1 million at Black Rock. Providing air conditioning is not deferred maintenance item. That's a capital improvement. Schools aren't air conditioning right now. Replacing electric heating, you wouldn't do that. Electric heating does not have operating parts. It just works or it doesn't. You would never replace electric heating. You would do a comprehensive mechanical replacement project for the entire building. Replace walls between classrooms to improve acoustics. It's about $200,000 per school. That is unrealistic. That is not a deferred maintenance item. We're not going to have a project where we take down all the walls between classrooms to make them acoustically better. Next. Reporting errors. When we looked at the report at Hopkins Hill, repaved sidewalks to annex, $2,250,000. That was probably meant to be $2,250. Replace 2 air handling units, $2.3 million. That probably should be $234,000. Next. When we do all of that, we sort of start to level all of these out. And I wanted to go school by school. Go to the next slide. We identified these 6 categories: site, exterior, interior, electrical, mechanical, and plumbing. Those are the 6 categories that we used throughout the entire assessment. And when we went through the Jacobs report and took out the stuff that we mentioned and start to level out that, we have the Jacobs report at 1.6 million at Black Rock. When we do Colliers through that same lens, it's 2.8 million. That doesn't surprise us, right? This was done 3 years later than this. Costs have increased, and there may be some variation in the assessment, but they start to be a little bit more aligned. Then we look at what we're spending in our stage 2 at Black Rock. We're going to be spending 1.1 million. All right, and this is how our breakdown looks. Next slide. So we wanted to sort of graph that. All right, how does that look? Where are we spending? At plumbing, we're spending more than what Colliers had projected, because Colliers had projected in plumbing to replace these toilets. Well, we're doing more than replacing the toilets. We're taking it all out and making those bathrooms accessible. So we wanted to see where we fell short and what did that mean for the school department. So the next slide. So we did some conditional formatting here, so you can see we took the components, the scopes of work, and we identified from a percentage from 0 to 100, either the percent of work that was complete through my discussions with Jason, or that are included in the stage 2. And what this shows is where Coventry will be at risk going forward. Like I said, we're not doing it all. I've shown you that we're not. And that's okay. Nobody does it all. But I wanted to make you aware of where you need to focus Jason's attention. So let's look. At Roadways, there is scope of work. I have 0%. Actually, some of those deficiencies may be the town's responsibility, such as access to the athletic parking lot near Blackrock. The exterior doors, we're doing 0%. But all the doors are operable and the facility is secure. Windows, we're not doing any windows, but Jason and his group are maintaining them as necessary. Casework, we're not doing any casework, but when sinks in the perimeter casework are not functioning, Jason's group is repairing them. Electrical service is different than what we're talking about in terms of power distribution. Electrical service, fixing about 10% of the need, but your electrical system is functioning, not no moving parts in the electrical system. Parking, we're doing 20%. Air handling, HVAC, 30%. So I start to identify things that we're doing completely, things that we're spending some money on, and things that we're spending no money on. That doesn't mean this need goes away. You are maintaining this need, and in the future, you will have to continue to maintain it. The budget doesn't support doing everything all at once, and nobody does that. What I wanted to do is give you all enough information to know where you need to focus after this effort. There will always be maintenance, even when you're done doing some of the work. And I did this for all the schools. So I believe that Jason has done a lot with what he has to work with. He is maintaining a safe and secure building. You're passing indoor air quality tests. There are things that we're going to absolutely be able to do. There will be things that we're not able to do. And how are they being managed going forward? So to take the Jacobs report and just say 56 million, not accurate. And it's not accurate to take the Colliers report either. And it's not even accurate to just say it is blank dollars, because it varies a lot. I think the important information is to know where you are needing to focus your attention in the future, and be very proud of what you're doing and are going to be able to do. Yes.
One thing I would just suggest you point out too is that there was some strategic calculation that when we knew there was more need than we had money. We chose the middle school to focus also on educational adequacy.
Sure.
And that schools like Clark, Ohio, Hopkins Hill, we identified that we want to take care of the works, like priority ones. And that's where I'm having a little trouble with here, like which one of these are priority, sort of the priority ones. But there was a commitment made to understand that we may look at consolidation. We didn't want to overspend in some of these facilities. We knew that we wanted to address the worst problems and for lack of a better term, crush them through the next 10 to 20 years and determine, based on enrollment and everything else, where they've landed. As we go to 100%, we fix every deficiency in the school, not to say that shouldn't be done, but I think it's gonna be very difficult moving forward to say, we're gonna take that school offline. Because enrollment's low. We have a brand new building, like if we were to build a new one. So I think that might be something we weave in, and just, because I think that's part of the discussion we had, of like, we strategically didn't put fully funding block up and fully, not only that, but we didn't have money, like, we could have sacrificed that. Because the question may come up, why didn't you just sacrifice the new wing? And just do bare bones Band-Aids on the whole thing, right? We knew what you needed to do under deferred maintenance. Put in, to Kim's point earlier, here's the Jacobs report, do it. And that's the bean counter's view of it would be like, yeah, just do that. But I don't think that solves
It wasn't the purpose, I mean, I remember meeting with Ride in the Jacobs group when they put together, and the governor, and then I think, I can't remember the treasurer, who was Seth Magaziner at the time, but they were strategic in doing that. Like, and you said all along, even if we did all that, it doesn't impact programmatically, it just gets those systems up and running.
Yeah, I mean, so you can see, look at the components.
Well, that's what I'm
Very
saying.
few of these have any impact on educational enhancement.
Right,
So
but
I
that's
think
what we
that just needs to be pointed
right,
out.
but that's what we talked about here. We talked about, you said we wouldn't even be able to do some of this, be based on, like if we were to invest in it because of other areas, issues we have. Look at the traffic issues we're having at different schools right now. So, I mean, I think we've had those conversations about that. The Jacobs report wasn't meant for every district, this is what you need to do. My understanding was it was meant to demonstrate the need Rhode Island had so they could go out to bond. There was no expectation that every district was going to come in and put 75 million. I think that the intent was to do what we've actually done, to look at it, to come up with a plan. So, because I think that was the intent when we said, well, if there's 75 million and the high school's number one, why aren't you doing the high school, right? So I think that's what was laid out. At least I believe it was the town manager at a meeting. So,
Yeah. Hey, Council President Dixon, Shockley, I'm interested in your perspective, because obviously you're going to be part of the group shooting all of this. So, any thoughts? Like, obviously, this approach is going to get expanded, and for every school.
I mean, I see positives of it, and I think people will still question, like, we fixed our playground, but not our electrical service. So we're probably gonna need to, because you'll be there, there's probably gonna be a lot of explanation. I think that one slide says a lot, it's like, in 2016, these things would have cost us 1.6 million, and 2019, it cost us 2.8. The maintenance needs and costs just went up in 3 years. So I think that's something to take some slides of the benefits of the project. I mean, people are probably going to take this what they want.
Sure, I mean, absolutely, and it does require, and unfortunately, there is a lot of technical stuff behind this.
Yeah.
For example, electrical service, there are buildings in Providence that have original electrical services that no one has any plans of ever touching, and they are well beyond their useful life. So, however, things that may have impact, power distribution, getting some more outlets to the classroom, that actually has an impact. And that's something that is possible. And again, these look different for other schools. Some schools have more green and less red, and maybe some more yellows. So, yeah, you're right. You can take from this what you want. What I'm trying to give you all is the information to make a good plan going forward.
And you have any?
I think the person on the council for information over Jacobs report really wanted to understand whether the building committee had considered the long range plan and what other things needed to be done. So, I mean, I think that this presentation addresses that issue. But I'm sitting here from a practical point of view. On November 22nd, there's a lot of agenda items. I'm figuring that it's going to take you at least an hour to present the project and the financial plan and have a discussion on that. And I'm thinking this will take at least 35 minutes or 40 minutes or so to discuss this. And I don't want this to detract from the other part of the how this information can be presented in such a way that we can say, yes, we have considered this. We know that this kind of work needs to be done, but it could be improved in some way, and that maybe some of this information could be presented in the handout. Because I don't want it to distract from really what people say they want to do, and that is present one project and present one financial plan, which is going to have lots of questions associated with it. So how do you do the two? How do you do those two things in one meeting when you have a lot of other agenda items that need to be discussed at the same meeting?
Sorry to interrupt my judging, but this is the type of report that, you know, say you have a glossary of what each of these components mean. You can send this out and make it so it's not,
It has to be sent out ahead of time and sort of summarized.
yeah, like, you know, I like having the personal feedback and maybe having them there to answer questions that people have on this report, because helps them read it all faster. But like I said, I think you're gonna need some definition pages so that if I'm reading this, I have a good definition name, I know the difference between electrical service and power distribution. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think those things will be necessary. ADA is like, this is helping us keep compliant. If what we're saying is there are a couple of
Yeah, I think one of the things that I saw the driving question from the council member asked for this was, what are we not addressing? And how are we gonna address it? Like, the bottom line, like, to dumb it down, you're spending $89 million, but you're still gonna have stuff you're not addressing, because you didn't take the Band-Aid approach.
Correct.
So what are those, and how are we gonna address those? And that needs to be summarized very succinctly on, here's the gap, here's how we plan on addressing it, or here's things we strategically didn't address because of X. And that needs to be summarized, I think, what I'm hearing, succinctly as part of the presentation, but this is intended.
So that it doesn't distract from the discussion that needs to take place.
I 100% agree. I don't want to go down a hole of, well, you know, you're only doing 10% of electrical there. What does that mean, and how is that going to affect it?
Maybe I take it up one, this is in the handout with
Roll it up.
definitions, but go back to that previous slide, maybe the one the one before that. This is maybe a good idea,
That's what you're telling.
and then I stop here and explain a little bit more about this gap, why, and then the other slide with that condition. I mean, really, the things we're not doing, I'm telling you, they're the ones in red. But I'm also giving you reasons why they're not doing or how they're being maintained. I got it.
That just needs to
And
be.
this is way better than 0%, I think. Like, it shows, you got a little bit of color in every color.
Oh, and the one thing I meant to say here, one thing I forgot to say, you can tell, I was comforted to see all three of these charts should kind of look alike. You know what I mean? They're
Sure.
like, this one shouldn't be all gray. If only these two were about 2/3 gray. And I was glad to see a lot of these starting to look like each other. That means that when we did our leveling, it was right, it was correct.
So the other thing is this presentation introduces something new, the Columnist Report, which we had not heard about before.
It was in the phase two.
Huh?
It was in the phase 2 report, stage 2 report.
But I don't remember it too well.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it was after 8 p.m.
Yeah, that was all right.
But there was a lot of discussion about, well, from this report I pulled out this, and this report I pulled out that, and I understand logically how you got to that point. But I don't know if people's patience will be there to really care about that part,
Okay, I understand.
you know, so I just leave it at that.
Sure, I understand.
And Bill, what if we just turned it our assessment? Like we had a company, this was our stage 2,
Okay.
our internal assessment. We just call it that.
Okay.
That way, it doesn't really matter if it's valued. People don't care. We're just pointing out, like, this was our, we
Okay.
had a facilities person do it, this was our assessment versus the state.
Yeah, I didn't know how much credibility we need to provide. Maybe not,
You can
maybe
say it
not.
at the beginning, but I think going through the presentation might be helpful just to say our assessment purposes.
All right, and I can roll this up, and at least we can have the information in the background if we need it, or as part of the handout.
I think this is really, I think you hit the nail on the head. Not so much that we're addressing everything, but we're addressing something in every category.
Correct. And that's what we tried to be fair about, leveling all of them. So yeah, there was two parts. One, that we're doing something, and then also to not discredit the code, not to discredit the Jacobs report, but Jacobs report cannot be the one and done answer.
Do others have questions or input on this? Open it up. All right, so yeah, if I think the clear direction is roll it up.
Yep.
Supporting information in the back.
Definition.
Summary,
Good idea.
try to boil it down to how long you think, 20 to 25 minutes?
It's up to you.
Well, no, it's, I mean, what do you think?
It kind of has to be a few ends. You have to.
Yeah, I think you know your
Of our
boundaries.
meeting.
We know how many things are in the queue already, so I think I'm gonna try to include some of those things in the queue,
Okay.
like maybe truck.
We need a lot of time for discussion on
We do.
this.
We do need that.
You know, if these meetings go too late, and I'm not paying attention to the way I should be anymore. Like, I don't say this is
No, I
a meeting,
understand
but
what you're saying.
there's only so much I can do.
So we'll try to whittle it down as efficient as
We
possible.
don't want to shortchange the discussion on the project and the financial. Don't want to do that.
I think the other part, though, is that, my 2 cents with your meetings is that you want the public and you guys to Zoom, you know, when a lot of times the school things are put at the end, I know I go back and look and the numbers drop off, right? So, you know, I can't tell you what to do, that's your call, but I wish we were up early when you have the most, you know, people are at their best thinking, and, you know, again, that's not my decision, but I feel like when we go last, I understand, so we can have all the time in the world, but, you know.
And the department heads don't want to sit there until a time unknown.
I get it,
At which
I
they would
understand.
present, so, you know.
You should
it's
tell my
about-
town council that. I
Huh?
was there till 11 on Monday night. I said, you should tell the South Kingston town council that, everyone's at the end. All right. You know, our, you know, timeframes we're looking at, it would be helpful, I would say it's an $89 million decision, so put the priority on it if you want. All right, we'll move on. The only thing I'll touch upon on the 7th item, which currently has 2 sevens on there, is that at an upcoming meeting, Sam Bradner will come back with the architectural RFQ. Unfortunately, we didn't get to it tonight, but that's okay. We have some time on that. I think it's important we focus on this right now. So Sam will come back on that. In the meantime, obviously, we have a tour that's going to be scheduled. You have a meeting next week. And I will be available for anyone who needs to get in contact with me. We have no public here, so there is no public comment.
Is there no one on there now?
I don't know.
No, we don't-
We didn't put it out as a public.
It was just.
We were accommodating Sam with the Zoom.
Yeah, it's just me.
Just you. So we'll have scheduling the next meeting, which we're going to say is next Wednesday, correct? Which is
17th
17th.
at 6:30.
6:30, so I can get a motion at Wednesday, 17th at 6:30.
Make a motion. Second the motion.
Thanks, Lee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed. All right, that's it. I'm gonna get a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to
At
adjourn.
8:28. Thank you, Ann. Second. Thank you. Shockley, all those in favor?
No, I don't want to.
Any opposed? You're on your own, Kathy. Have fun.
I always love that, but, you know.
I know, it's like.
I don't have to do that, but everybody.
Wrong.
We haven't had anyone raise their hand yet to be like, nobody's like.
No,
I know.
please, keep me here.
But every time I say that, even as the chair, it's looking at me, I laugh.